Rain tapped a soft, inconsistent rhythm against the skylight of Leo Vance's attic studio. Below him, the muted sounds of a Portland evening filtered up. The distant hum of a bus on Alberta Street, the clatter of a pan in the kitchen, his 10-year-old son Ben's laughter at a video game. Before we dive deeper, let me know, where are you watching from today? In the comment below. Leo stared at the computer screen, his fingers idle on the keyboard. The rendering before him was fine, competent. It was a set of 3 townhomes for an infill lot in the Kenton neighborhood. They had clean lines, decent light, and met all code requirements. They were also, he thought with a dull ache, utterly soulless. A cookie-cutter solution from a man who once dreamed of designing community landmarks. He saved the file, labeling it Kenton_Rev7_final_maybe. The grind of local residential work had worn his creative edges smooth. It paid the mortgage on their cedar-shingled craftsman, kept Ben in soccer gear, and funded Sophia's interior design projects. But it felt like building nests, not dreams. The smell of roasting vegetables and garlic wound its way upstairs. Sophia was cooking. He could picture her in their renovated kitchen, her dark hair tied back, moving with the efficient grace she applied to everything. They were a good team, a solid partnership. At least, that's what he told himself most days. He minimized the architectural software and opened a browser tab. Their 12th wedding anniversary was in 2 weeks. His gift was not a car, but a carefully plotted experience. A weekend at a modernist glass house on the Oregon coast, followed by tickets to the Northwest Design Symposium in Seattle, where keynote speaker was her idol, a pioneering female architect. He'd booked it all months ago. He just needed to confirm the dates against her passport. He pushed back from the drafting table and headed downstairs. The house was warm, filled with the low glow of pendant lights and the clutter of a lived-in life. Ben's backpack by the door, Sophia's fabric samples draped over the sofa, a half-built Lego spaceship on the coffee table. "Smells amazing," he said, entering the kitchen. Sophia glanced over her shoulder, offering a quick smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She looked tired, just tossing some root vegetables. "How's Kenton?" "Kenton is compliant," he said, leaning against the island. "Client happy. Client's wallet is happy. That's the goal, right?" He tried to keep the bitterness out of his voice. She paused her chopping. "You okay?" "Just a creative slump," he said, waving it off. The eternal Portland architect's dilemma. Do good work or do profitable work. "Why not both?" she said, but it sounded like a reflex, a line from their earlier, more optimistic years. "I need to check something on your passport for the trip dates," he said, changing the subject. "Where's it hiding?" "Hall closet, I think. In the blue document box on the top shelf." He found the box. He lifted the lid. On top of a stack of old tax returns and insurance papers lay not a navy blue passport, but a portfolio. It was made of a charcoal gray leather so fine it felt like cool water under his fingertips. Embossed on the cover in crisp, silver lettering was a name, El Sahar Developments. Below it, a simple, elegant logo resembling a stylized oasis. A cold knot formed in Leo's stomach. He had never seen this before. He opened it. Inside were not Sophia's usual fabric swatches and paint palettes, but architectural elevations and site plans of breathtaking scope and beauty. A mixed-use cultural hub, woven with green spaces and shaded walkways, designed for a hot climate. The style was unmistakably Sophia's, human-centric, warm, seamlessly integrated with its environment, but amplified to a scale she'd never worked on. Scribbled in her familiar handwriting in the margins were notes. "Passive cooling here. Communal plaza for evening markets." His heart began a slow, heavy thud. He flipped a page. A printed email was paper-clipped to a landscape section. The header was from a Kareem Al-Farsi, managing director. The text was brief, professional. "Sophia, these revised elevations are exceptional. The board was unanimous. The formal offer is attached. We are eager to welcome you to Dubai for final discussions. Your vision is precisely what we need to realize the full potential of this site." Final discussions. Dubai. Paperclip behind the email was an airline itinerary. Departure. Portland International, 1 week from today. Destination, Dubai International. The world in the warm, cluttered hallway narrowed to the sharp edges of the paper in his hands. The rain on the roof, Ben's laughter, the smell of garlic. All of it receded, replaced by a deafening, silent roar. Leo's hands were numb. The fine leather of the portfolio felt alien, dangerous. He stood frozen in the hallway. The cheerful chaos of his home, now feeling like a museum diorama of a life that was already over. From the kitchen, Sophia's voice cut through the static in his head. "Leo, did you find it?" He couldn't answer. His throat was sealed shut. He carefully, as if handling a live explosive, lifted the portfolio out of the box. Underneath, her familiar blue passport lay where it should have been. He ignored it. He took the portfolio to the small half-bathroom under the stairs and locked the door. The click of the lock was deafening in the tiny space. He turned on the fan for noise and leaned against the door, sliding to the floor. His breathing was shallow. He opened the portfolio again, forcing his architect's brain to analyze what his heart couldn't process. The designs were, objectively, a masterpiece. Sophia had always been brilliant at weaving human scale into her interiors. Here, she'd done it for an entire mini-city. There were shaded courtyards with intricate latticework, water features designed for evaporative cooling, residential units that opened onto communal gardens. It was sustainable, beautiful, and socially conscious. It was the kind of project he had once dreamed of doing. The attached documents were clinical. An offer letter. The salary figure made his breath hitch. It was more than they currently made combined, with bonuses that dwarfed his annual income. A benefits package included a luxury apartment, a car, international school tuition. A start date, just 6 weeks away. Then he saw the correspondence. Not just a final email, but a chain. He scrolled, his heart sinking deeper with each line. The first contact was dated nearly 5 months ago. An initial praise-filled message from Kareem Al-Farsi after Sophia's design for a local community center won a minor award. A follow-up video call invitation. Sophia's replies were professional, but grew increasingly engaged and enthusiastic. The word mentorship appeared. Kareem spoke of global platforms and legacy projects. Sophia wrote about the limitations of local-scale work. In one email from 3 months prior, she said, "Your vision for integrated, human-centric development in the Gulf is exactly the kind of challenge I've been seeking. It feels like my work here has been a preparation for this." Leo felt the words like a physical blow. Their life together, their projects, their home, just preparation for her real life, waiting in Dubai. He heard Ben's footsteps thump down the stairs. "Dad, Mom says dinner's almost ready. Are you in there?" Leo jerked, fumbling to close the portfolio. "Be right out, buddy," he called, forcing his voice into a strange, bright normalcy. "Just, checking something." He waited for Ben's footsteps to recede. He looked at his reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a kind of terrified confusion. This wasn't an affair. It was something else, a planned abandonment, a secret life built over months right beside him. He had a choice. He could put it back, confront her later calmly, or he could walk out now and let the explosion happen. The sound of her pulling the roasting pan from the oven decided it. The mundane domesticity of it, the sheer normalcy, was a lie he could no longer stand inside. He unlocked the door, the portfolio held tight against his chest like a shield. He walked into the warm, fragrant kitchen. Sophia was at the stove, her back to him. Ben was setting the table. She turned, a smile on her face that vanished the moment she saw his eyes, then the leather in his hands. The wooden spoon she was holding clattered onto the stovetop. The silence that fell was absolute, broken only by the sizzle of vegetables and the rain against the window. The kitchen timer beeped, a shrill, absurd sound in the silence. No one moved. "Ben," Leo said, his voice strangely flat. "Go upstairs for a minute, please." "But dinner's." "Now, Ben." The boy looked from his father's rigid face to his mother's wide, panicked eyes. He slid off his chair and vanished up the stairs without another word. Sophia took a step back, her hand finding the edge of the counter for support. "Leo, I can explain." 5 months. He held up the portfolio. You've been planning this for 5 months. He dropped it on the kitchen island. The heavy leather slapped the quartz. A new job. A new country. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I just supposed to get a forwarding address? It wasn't like that, she whispered. It started as a networking thing, a hypothetical. Then it got real, and I didn't know how to tell you. Try, he said, the word cracking. Try right now. She wrapped her arms around herself. Al-Sahar is one of the most innovative developers in the world. Kareem saw my community center project online. He said my approach was exactly what they needed for a flagship project in Dubai. A chance to design at a scale that actually changes how people live. Not just picking paint colors for lawyers' condos. Each word was a precise, professional dagger. Leo gestured around them. And this, our life, our son, this is just paint colors. Of course not. But Leo, be honest. When was the last time you felt excited about your work? When was the last time I did? We're treading water here. This is a chance to matter. You matter here. His control snapped, his voice rising. Ben matters. I mattered, or I thought I did. You do, she cried. That's why this is so hard. Don't you see? If I told you when he first called, you would have listed every reason it was impossible. The mortgage, your firm, Ben's school. You would have talked me out of it before I even let myself want it. He stared, gut-punched by the terrible truth in her accusation. Was she right? Would his first instinct have been to protect the stability of their life, to shut down the risk? So you lied, he said, deflating. For 5 months. You had secret calls, secret designs. You accepted a job offer. He tapped the itinerary. You booked a flight. It's not a final acceptance. It's a site visit, a cultural immersion. They want me to see the context, meet the team. I was going to tell you after this trip, once I had all the information. After, Leo repeated bitterly. He picked up the portfolio, flipping to the email with the phrase that had burned itself into his mind. He read it aloud, his tone cold. Your vision is precisely what we need to realize the full potential of this site. He looked at her. What's phase 2, Sophia? In his earlier email, he says your work is key for phase 2. What does that mean? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I don't know. Later development phases. It's a huge site. You designed whole community hub, and you don't know the master plan? The master plan is the community hub, she insisted, her defensiveness returning. You're looking for ghosts, Leo. You're trying to find something wrong with it because you're scared. The oven beeped again, a lower tone. The dinner was burning. Neither of them moved to save it. When is the flight? He asked, though he knew. Next Thursday. He nodded slowly, a terrible calm settling over him. Okay, she echoed, wary. You should go, he said. See your context. Meet your team. Get all your information. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing amid the ruins of their evening and the acrid smell of their burning future. The next 7 days passed in a cold, structured blur. Sophia moved through the house like a ghost, packing quietly, speaking to Leo only about logistics for Ben. Leo responded in monosyllables. They became expert roommates, navigating around the crater that had opened in their living room. Thursday morning arrived, gray and drizzly. A Blacktown car pulled up to the curb at 5:45 a.m. Leo watched from the bedroom window as Kareem Al-Farsi, visible only as a sharply dressed silhouette, stepped out to open the door for Sophia. He did not touch her, but the courtesy was intimate, proprietary. Sophia did not look back at the house. The car slid away into the pre-dawn gloom. The silence it left behind was immense. Leo got Ben ready for school, packing his lunch, signing a field trip form. Ben was subdued. Is Mom going to live in the desert? He asked, zipping his backpack. No, buddy. She's just visiting for work. A long business trip. But she took the big suitcase. Leo knelt down. She did. But she's coming back. We'll talk to her on video tonight, okay? Ben nodded, not looking convinced. After the school drop-off, Leo didn't go to his office. He went to a coffee shop on Mississippi Avenue, ordered a black coffee, and opened his laptop. He started with Al-Sahar's gorgeous, vapid website, images of gleaming towers rising from dunes, promises of sustainable oases, and cultural dialogue. He found Sophia's Community Hub project buried in a future development section. The description was florid but vague. A heart for the new community. He dug deeper. Business registries, international property databases. He used his professional network, sending vague queries to a former classmate who worked in Bahrain. By lunch, he had found the first crack. The land parcel for Al-Sahar's Dubai North Oasis was not a blank desert plot. It was adjacent to, and partially overlapping with, a district called Al-Nakheel, described in a decade-old travel blog as a warren of low-rise traditional homes and workshops. His architect's mind began connecting dots. A community hub needed an existing community to hub. But what if the hub wasn't the start, but the replacement? That afternoon, he called Arthur Clemens. His retired mentor lived in a book-crammed cottage in the West Hills. Al-Sahar. Arthur grunted over the phone. Pretty name for a pretty machine. What's your interest? A professional inquiry, Leo said, keeping his voice neutral. A long pause. Meet me at the Japanese garden. 4 o'clock. And buy the tickets. My knees are too old for standing in line. Leo arrived early. The garden was a world of controlled serenity, raked gravel, and still ponds. Arthur was already there, leaning on a cane by the koi pond, a tweed cap pulled low. He didn't offer pleasantries. They're placemakers, Arthur said, not looking at Leo. Not place builders. There's a difference. They identify a value, a view, a history, a community vibe. They package it, sell it as part of a luxury product, and in the process, they erase the original thing that had the value. It's not architecture. It's taxidermy. What if the architect doesn't know? Leo asked quietly. Arthur finally turned, his eyes sharp behind thick glasses. Then they're the most valuable tool in the box. An innocent brush paints the prettiest whitewash. He peered at Leo. This isn't a theoretical inquiry, is it, Leo? Leo looked at the perfect, manicured garden, a nature that was entirely fabricated. He thought of Sophia's designs, so full of authentic life, sitting in that sterile portfolio. No, Arthur, he said. It's not theoretical at all. The video call that evening was a study in dissonance. Sophia's face filled Leo's laptop screen, backdropped by a floor-to-ceiling window showcasing a twilight panorama of the Dubai skyline, a jeweled spine of impossible towers. She looked exhilarated, buzzing with a nervous energy he hadn't seen in years. Leo, it's incredible. The scale of everything, the ambition. The team is so sharp. Her words tumbled out. And the apartment they've provided for the visit. Ben would love the pool. How's the site? Leo asked, his voice carefully flat. He was in their dim living room, a single lamp on, surrounded by their familiar, worn furniture. Raw. Potent. You can feel the potential. She didn't mention Al-Nakheel. My hub design fits the eastern edge perfectly. Kareem says it will be the welcoming soul of the entire development. Welcoming soul. Leo's fingers tightened on his knee. And the rest of the development? The master plan. A flicker of hesitation. It's still being finalized. Broader residential and commercial zones. The hub is the first phase, the anchor. Phase 1. Not Phase 2. His suspicion tightened like a wire. Send me the full site plans, Sophia. The topo surveys, the zoning maps. I'd like to see it. He kept his tone professional, collegial. Her smile faltered. Why? Because I'm an architect and you're my wife. I'm interested in your work. The truth and the lie sat uncomfortably together. I don't have them all here. They're at the office. It's fine, Leo. Really. After the call, he felt a cold certainty. She was being shown a curated reality. The next morning, his former classmate in Bahrain replied to his query. The message was brief, with a file attachment. Heard whispers about this. Land use designations changed last year. See attached. Tread carefully. The file was a scanned, confidential-looking memorandum from a Dubai municipal planning office. It was in Arabic, but key phrases were in English. Al-Nakheel district. comprehensive redevelopment, voluntary relocation initiatives, land cleared for high density, mixed-use vertical community. A map was included. Sophia's beautiful, intricate community hub was a small, verdant patch stitched to the edge of a vast area marked for total clearance. Phase 2 wasn't a later phase. It was the real project. The hub was the welcoming soul, meant to sanctify the erasure. Her life's work would be the pretty brochure for a demolition. Leo printed the map and memo. He laid them on his drafting table beside a printout of Sophia's hub design. The juxtaposition was obscene. Her shaded walkways ended abruptly at a hard line, beyond which the existing urban fabric was slated to become dust. He thought of Arthur's words, taxidermy. They weren't building a community. They were stuffing the idea of one, using Sophia's authentic talent as the stuffing, to decorate the tomb of a real one. The anger he'd felt was gone, replaced by a profound, chilling clarity. This wasn't just about his marriage anymore. They had targeted his wife's idealism, her hunger to matter, and weaponized it. They were making her an accomplice to a cultural crime she would never knowingly commit. He had to make her see. But first, he needed irrefutable proof. The man who could provide it was the same one who had orchestrated the deception. Kareem Al-Farsi called the next afternoon. Leo wasn't surprised. It was as if the man had a sensor for doubt, a radar for fractured loyalty. Leo, I hope I'm not disturbing you. The voice was smooth, unaccented English with a melodic undertone. It was the voice of expensive boardrooms and private lounges. You are, Leo said flatly, standing in his silent kitchen. A soft chuckle. Direct. I appreciate that. Sophia speaks of you with such fondness and respect for your practical talent. The barb was perfectly placed. Practical. Not visionary, not groundbreaking. Practical. What do you want? To offer clarity. I sense misunderstanding. Sophia is brilliant. This project could define her career. It is a legacy opportunity. I would hate to see it lost to provincial anxieties. Leo felt a hot spike of anger. My provincial anxiety is that you're hiring her to put a beautiful face on a land grab. I've seen the municipal memos for Al Nakil. There was a beat of silence, not of shock, but of recalculating. I see. You've been diligent. Then you understand this isn't a sinister plot. It's urban evolution. The Al Nakil area is obsolete. Its residents will be compensated, relocated to modern housing. What we offer is progress with a conscience. Sophia's design provides that conscience, a bridge between past and future. He was reframing the crime as philanthropy. Leo marveled at the audacity. You're using her integrity as a marketing tool. She thinks she's building a community. You're building a tombstone for one. You underestimate her, Kareem said, his tone cooling a degree. She understands scale. She craves impact. In Portland, she designs rooms. Here, she will shape the ethos of an entire district. That requires complex decisions. And what's your decision? Leo fired back. When she finds out the community she's designing for is slated for demolition, that her work is the pretty brochure for a lie. She will be part of the decision-making, a stakeholder. Her vision will guide the entire redevelopment. This is what she wants, Leo. To not just decorate the world, but to change its blueprint. He paused, letting the ambition of the words hang. The question is, do you want that for her? Or do you want her safe, small, and forever wondering what she could have been? I know which choice feels like love, and which feels like fear. The words were a psychological scalpel, expertly probing Leo's deepest insecurity. Was he trying to save her, or cage her? Was his motive protection, or envy? She'll see the truth, Leo said, but his voice lacked its earlier force. Will she? Kareem's tone was almost pitying. Or will she see a husband who, when presented with her greatest chance, chose to undermine it rather than believe in her strength to handle complexity? Think carefully, Leo. You are not saving her. You are defining yourself as an anchor or a sail. The line went dead. Leo stood holding the phone, Kareem's final metaphor echoing in the silent house. Anchor or sail. The villain had reframed himself as the champion of Sophia's dreams, and Leo as the frightened, holding weight. He walked to the drafting table, to the damning map overlay. The evidence was clear, factual, righteous. But Kareem had skillfully shifted the battle from facts to feelings, from ethics to psychology. He had made the truth feel small and possessive. Leo's certainty was gone, replaced by a corrosive doubt. What if, in trying to expose the lie, he became the villain of Sophia's story? The evidence was arranged on his screen, like a prosecutor's exhibit. On the left, Sophia's beautiful hub renderings. On the right, the municipal map with its star clearance boundary. In the center, the planning memo. Leo's hand hovered over the video call button. Kareem's voice echoed in his head. Anchor or sail? He took a sharp breath and clicked. Sophia answered, her background the sleek, minimalist apartment. She was dressed for an evening event, a silk blouse catching the light. Her smile was bright, expectant. Leo, I was about to head out. The board is hosting a dinner at the Burj Al. I need to show you something. He interrupted, his voice rough. Her smile faded. What's wrong? Is Ben okay? Ben's fine. This is about your project. He shared his screen. Look, he began silently, letting the visuals speak. He highlighted the boundary line on the municipal map. He zoomed in on the words comprehensive redevelopment and land cleared. With a few clicks, he overlaid her hub design onto the map, the elegant lines stopping dead at the hard edge of the demolition zone. He watched her face on the small preview window. The initial confusion deepened into concentration, then into dawning horror. The color drained from her cheeks. What is this? She whispered. The master plan, Leo said, his tone devoid of accusation, just exhausted clarity. Your community hub is Phase 1. Phase 2 is the demolition of Al Nakheel, the existing community. Your design isn't the heart of a new neighborhood, Sophia. It's the welcome center for its destruction. They're using your talent, your ethics, to make that pill easier to swallow. She shook her head, a tiny, frantic motion. No, that's not. Kareem said it was underutilized land. He said the hub would attract new, mixed income. He lied. Leo's voice was gentle now. The land isn't underutilized. It's occupied. They'll call it voluntary relocation. It's a forced clearing. Your work is the conscience he's selling. The greenwash. On the screen, she brought a trembling hand to her mouth. Her eyes were fixed on the overlay, tracing the brutal line where her vision met its grim purpose. He saw the exact moment understanding solidified, the moment the glittering opportunity shattered to reveal the rotten core. It wasn't anger that filled her face, but a profound, sickening shame. I designed the prettiest part of the lie, she said, the words hollow. You didn't know. I didn't ask, she cried, the sound strangled. I was so flattered, so hungry for scale. I didn't ask the hard questions. I didn't want to see. She looked directly at him, her eyes swimming with tears. You tried to ask about Phase 2, and I dismissed you. There was no victory in this. Her devastation was a physical weight in his chest. What do I do, Leo? Her voice was small, lost. He wanted to say come home, but Kareem's ghost was in his ear. Anchor or sail. This was her battle now, her integrity to reclaim. You have to finish it, he said softly. Your way, with your eyes open. She nodded slowly, a terrible resolve settling over her features, hardening the shame into something else. I have to go to the dinner. Sophia, I have to go, she repeated, her voice firmer. I need to see his face when I know. I'll call you after. The screen went black. Leo sat in the darkening Portland living room, the ghostly after images of maps and memos burned into his vision. He had given her the truth. He had set her sail. Now he could only wait in the silence, hoping he hadn't sent her into a storm alone. The Al-Sahar board dinner was held in a private room, suspended like a crystal bubble over the city. Sophia felt the weight of the silk on her shoulders, the deceptive comfort of the plush chair. She tasted nothing of the exquisite food. Kareem presided at the head of the table, the genial conductor. He raised a glass. To vision, to building not just structures, but the soul of a place. Glasses chimed. Sophia's remained on the tablecloth. The map from Leo's screen was burned behind her eyes, the pretty hub, the hard line, the erasure beyond. The conversation turned to her. Douglas Merrick, the CEO from New York, leaned in. Sophia, your integrated approach is precisely the narrative we need. Authenticity. Community focus. It resonates. Narrative. The word was the final key. She set her napkin neatly beside her plate. The gentle clink of her fork against the crystal water glass was sharper than she intended. Conversations hiccuped. Eyes turned to her. A narrative, Sophia said, her voice clear in the sudden quiet. That's an interesting word for it, Douglas. She turned her gaze to Kareem. His smile was still in place, but his eyes had gone watchful. I've been thinking about the narrative of the Dubai North Oasis project. Specifically, the narrative for Phase 2. Sophia, Kareem began, his tone warm, warning. The narrative, she continued, speaking over him, as told in the Dubai Municipal Planning Memorandum dated last year, the one about the comprehensive redevelopment and clearance of the Al Nakheel district. A frozen silence fell. Merrick's face tightened. I think there's a misunderstanding, Kareem said smoothly, but the charm was now a thin veneer. I understand perfectly, Sophia said. She stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She spoke as a designer explaining a fatal flaw. You recruited me to design the soul of a place, but you neglected to mention that the place already has a soul, that it has homes and workshops and people, that my community hub isn't a heart. It's a cosmetic bandage on an amputation. You didn't want my design. You wanted my credibility, to make the erasure look like empathy. This is highly unprofessional, Merrick snapped. You're right, Sophia agreed, meeting his glare. What you're doing is deeply unprofessional. It's unethical, and I will not be the brush you use to whitewash it. She looked at Kareem one last time. The mentor was gone. In his place was a coldly calculating strategist who had miscalculated her principles. You told my husband an architect could be an anchor or a sail. You thought my ambition would make me your sail. You were wrong. My integrity is my anchor, and it just snagged your entire project. She did not slam the door. She walked out, the echo of her heels on marble the only sound in the stunned room. In the elevator descending through the glittering tower, she didn't cry. She felt a strange, clear emptiness. The phantom life she'd imagined here, the prestige, the scale, the validation was gone. In its place was the scorched earth of truth. Back in the silent apartment, she booked the first morning flight home. Then she sat by the vast window, looking at the artificial constellations of the city, and waited for the desert night to end. Sophia's flight landed in a Portland downpour. Leo met her at the arrival's curb, the wipers of the RAV forbeating a steady rhythm. The hug was stiff, a brief press of damp coats. The drive home was a tunnel of silence, punched through by windshield wipers. Ben was at a friend's house. The craftsman felt cavernous, echoing with everything unsaid. They stood in the living room, water pooling at their feet from their luggage. You were right, she said finally, not looking at him. About everything. It doesn't feel good, Leo replied, his voice quiet. No. They ordered Thai food they didn't eat. The containers sat on the coffee table, a monument to their mutual paralysis. The shared, righteous enemy was gone. Now it was just them and the wreckage. The following Tuesday, they sat in the soft, book-lined office of Dr. Amanda Pierce. The couple's therapist had a kind, unflinching face. Start with why you're here, Dr. Pierce suggested. Sophia spoke first, her words rushing out. I lied. I kept a secret for months. I almost broke our family for a job that was a lie. I feel ashamed. Leo nodded. I'm angry. And hurt. I feel like I wasn't enough for her to be honest with. Dr. Pierce let the words hang. Good. Those are the injuries. Now let's talk about the infection that caused them. The secrecy, Leo's hurt. Those are symptoms. What was the disease? Sophia looked at her hands. I felt invisible. Not as a mom or a wife, but as an artist. My world got small. Leo's work was the real architecture. Mine was decoration. I stopped telling him my big ideas because the answer was always a gentle maybe someday, which felt like no. Leo flinched. I never said your work wasn't real. You didn't have to, she said, her voice cracking. Your practical job paid the bills. My creative job was the extra. I felt like your supporting act. And when Kareem called, he saw me as the main event. Leo stared at the floor. I was scared, he admitted, the words unfamiliar in his mouth. Scared of risk. Scared if we dreamed too big, we'd lose what we had. I thought being the stable one was my job. I didn't know it felt like a cage. And you, Sophia? Dr. Pierce asked. When you felt caged, why was the answer a secret escape plan, and not a conversation with your warden? Sophia's tears fell. Because I was a coward. I was afraid if I said it out loud, that I was suffocating. It would make it real. And then we'd have to change, or we'd break. And I didn't know how to do either. It was the first real truth, deeper than Dubai. The silence in the room was no longer hostile, but heavy with shared grief for the years of silence that had preceded it. Dr. Pierce leaned forward. So, you both failed each other. He failed to see your ambition. You failed to trust him with your despair. The question isn't about blame anymore. It's about what you build from this rubble. Do you want to build a new marriage, or just a careful truce? In the quiet that followed, Leo reached across the space between their chairs. He didn't take her hand, just laid his own, open, on the armrest. An invitation, not a demand. After a heartbeat that felt like a year, Sophia placed her hand in his. It was not a fix. It was a starting point. 6 months later, spring sunlight streamed through the freshly cleaned windows of their garage. It was no longer a garage. The workbenches were drafting tables. The old garden tools were replaced by material samples and rolled schematics. A shared workspace. Leo stood at his table, sketching elevations for a 4-unit affordable housing project in the Portsmouth neighborhood. The forms were simple, honest, designed for light and community. It wasn't a Dubai-scale legacy. It was a Portland-scale solution. At her table, Sophia worked on the interiors, sourcing durable, warm materials on a tight budget. Her earlier restlessness was gone, replaced by a focused intensity. This project was theirs, a joint submission to a city-sponsored design competition. They'd won it together. Ben came in, holding a Lego model. Look, I made the common room. It was a blocky but recognizable atrium with little green pieces for plants. Perfect, Sophia said, smiling. We'll incorporate that. Leo put an arm around his son, chief Lego consultant. This was the new rhythm. They worked in the studio in the evenings after Ben's homework. They argued over details, not with hidden resentment, but with the passionate debate of partners. The silence between them was no longer charged. It was often companionable, the sound of two people building something, side by side. The Al-Sahar scandal had made minor trade news. Sophia's quiet refusal had been noted. She'd received a few cautious offers from ethical firms, but for now, she'd taken a part-time role with a nonprofit that helped schools design flexible learning spaces. The pay was modest. The fulfillment was real. Leo had negotiated a 4-day week at his firm. Fridays were for the cooperative work and for coaching Ben's soccer team. They were poorer in savings, richer in time. The grand, shimmering future had been a mirage. The real future was here, in the smell of coffee and tracing paper, in the sound of their son's laughter in the next room. One evening, as they cleaned up the studio, Sophia paused, holding a model of their housing project. It's small, she said. Leo looked at her, a flicker of the old fear in his chest. She met his gaze, her eyes clear. It's exactly the right size. He understood. Ambition hadn't vanished. It had been recalibrated. It was no longer about scale or prestige, but about integrity and impact, about building a life, not just a resume. Later, they sat on their front porch steps, watching the sunset paint the Alberta Street clouds in orange and purple. Their shoulders touched. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for the 100th time, but now it was a soft punctuation, not a plea. Me too, he said, his hand finding hers. They had not rebuilt the old marriage, the one of unspoken compromises and quiet suffocation. That foundation was gone. They had poured a new one, mixed with hard truths, professional humility, and the choice, every day, to see each other not just as spouses, but as collaborators in the delicate, ongoing project of their lives. The surprise, Leo thought as the last light faded, wasn't in the grand gesture or the distant dream. It was in the daily, deliberate work of building something true, together, from the ground up. It's about telling the truth, even when it scares you. It's about forgiving, even when it hurts. And it's about remembering that a life built with love, honesty, and commitment is worth more than any opportunity that asks you to sacrifice your integrity or your family. If this story moved you, like the video, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.